Okay, so we sewed down the sides. If if your hand kind of slipped and you don't have a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, you're going to want to trim your seams just so it's not bulky. But if it's just a 1/4 inch, it's fine. Okay, you're going to turn it inside out. Alright, and now you have your bodice. Okay, and then here are the straps. And I haven't opened my buttonhole yet. Later on I'll cut that open so we can slip the straps in, but we'll do that later. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to get to using the ruffler foot. We have to do one step first. Take your 2 pieces, put them right sides together, and you're just going to sew down one of the width sides. Okay? Pin if you need to, but you're just going to sew down one side. Okay, so I sewed down the one side and now I have one long piece attached. Now, just for reference, I used my serger just because this is going to be a seam that you're going to see when you look inside the dress or the top. So if you don't have a serger, I recommend doing a zigzag stitch. You can refer to my other tutorials for the pants to find out how to do that. But basically, you're just going to do a straight stitch like you would on a regular machine, and then when you're done, you have you have the seam showing. So that it doesn't fray in the wash, you just go back over and do a zigzag stitch. Okay, and that'll kind of finish the seam so it doesn't fray. Okay? But like I said, refer back to my the boutique ruffle pants, and I'll show you how to do that in that tutorial. Okay, so now we're on to the ruffler foot. Okay, you're going to take your foot off. Now, this is what my ruffler foot looks like. This is another thing, you're just going to have to go online and find the ruffler foot for your machine. I actually lucked out. My machine is a Kenmore, and there's actually a Sears right down the road. So that's where I got my ruffler foot, right at Sears. So a lot of the Joann's has a universal ruffler foot that can be used for many machines. You just kind of want to find out exactly what ruffler foot is going to work for your machine. Okay, and you're also going to have to read the directions on how to attach it to your machine. Mine is fairly simple. So I'm going to attach it. Okay. Now most ruffler foots, or at least mine, I can do a ruffle for every single stitch can make a ruffle, every 6th stitch or every 12th stitch. What I usually do is for the upper bodice area when I'm attaching a skirt, I usually do it every 6th stitch. Okay, and then there's also a little dial here that you can rotate, and this will this adjusts how big the ruffle is. Okay, so for mine, if I wind it all the way in, that's going to make a bigger ruffle. Okay, if I wind it out, that's going to make a smaller ruffle. Okay, so you're going to want to take this into account. It kind of depends on what you're making. Okay, so because I'm trying to explain, because we're doing a top, I kind of want the ruffles to be bigger under here, under the chest area. But then when I do the little ruffle at the bottom, I'm going to do it every 12th stitch because I don't want it to be, I don't want the ruffle to be so, I don't want each ruffle to be so thick. Okay, because then it's not going to kind of flare out. All right, and this is kind of just one of those things you just kind of have to use it a lot to get used to it. Okay, so practice, practice, practice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip my fabric in. Oops. And it just kind of ruffles as it goes. This is as opposed to gathering. Okay, gathering, it takes a long time. You have to do a running stitch, then you have to pull, and match it to how big the piece you're attaching it to. So this just makes it very, very simple and fast. And now it's ruffled. Okay, I hope that wasn't too confusing. Like I said, when you're using a ruffler foot, you just have to use it a lot and practice and you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so now we need to attach our skirting to our bodice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure our straps are dangling from the bottom, and we're going to take our seam, the very middle of where we attach these two pieces, and we're just going to attach it to the bodice. Okay, you're going to match up your seams. Okay, so just so you can see, the straps are on the bottom here. Okay, so it's kind of, the bodice is like upside down, and you're attaching the ruffle edge to the bottom of the bodice. Okay, I'm just going to use pins. Okay, when you get to the other seam on the other side of the bodice, just pin maybe an inch before that seam. Okay, so just this is kind of like flapping open. You're just going to leave that, and there's my seam right there. Okay, and you're just going to go to the other side, pin, and make sure your edges are even. Okay, same thing. When you get to that other seam, you're just going to leave it open. Okay, so now this is what we're going to do. We have this extra. And this is the extra fabric I was talking about. I have this. It depends on what size I'm making. So, so I'll have this extra scrap and I'll use it for another project. But what you're going to do is you're going to join these two pieces together. Okay? And you're going to leave a little bit of room. You're just going to kind of match it up to where that seam is. Okay? Okay, so now it's kind of snug. Alright? What you're going to do is you're going to sew down. You can put a pin in to mark where you're going to sew. Okay? And right when you get to your machine, you're going to take this pin out and you're just going to sew all the way down. Okay? Down there. Take my ruffler foot off. My regular foot back on. Okay, so like I said, you're just going to sew down. You're going to take your pin out. Okay, now put your presser foot on the fabric a little bit more closer to this side so you can kind of manipulate the fabric before you start. And what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of put the edges together on the bottom. Okay, and you're just going to want to make sure you go in a straight line. Back stitch. I'm just going to go all the way down. Okay, so now we have sewed this down, okay, and now this is extra, so we're just going to cut off our extra 1/4 inch from where our stitching is. Okay, just put your scraps aside. Now you have scraps for something else. Okay, and now this is what I was talking about. I'll do a little demonstration for the finishing or zigzag stitch. This I would normally do with my serger. But you want to finish this edge just so it looks a little bit more professional. So what you're going to do is you're just going to put it back in. You're going to change it to a zigzag stitch and make the width a little bit the stitch width a little bit higher. I usually do about a 5 when I'm doing this. And I have about a 2 length. And then you're going to back stitch, and you're going to go all the way down. Now, if you wanted the inside to be the same color, then you would take out your thread and you would do white, okay? But I just did brown, just because that's what I had in there, okay? So now, you know, when it goes in the wash, it's not going to fray, okay? So for this next part, I'm going to take off my arm. All right, so what we're going to do is we have this all pinned. Now, we're just going to sew the skirting to the bodice, and you have everything pinned, okay? The main thing with this is you need to make sure that you're sewing to the left of your ruffler foot stitch. Okay, so remember we have our stitch here from where we used our ruffler foot. You want to make sure that this stitch that you're doing, this regular straight stitch, is to the left of that. Okay, if it's to the right, when you flip it over and when you're looking at your finished product, you're going to see that ruffler foot stitch, and you don't want to see that. Okay, so we're just going to go through on the left of the ruffler stitch. Take your pins out. Alright, so now we have attached it. Now you've got a lot of thickness here that you're going to want to trim. Okay? Alright, so what I'm doing right now is I'm trimming the thickness of from when I sewed the bodice to the skirting. Okay? It's okay if you cut the stitch where you the stitch from the ruffler foot. You don't want to cut the stitch that you just made. Okay, it doesn't matter for the ruffler foot. But try to get as close as possible. You know, 1/8 of an inch would be good. If you have a serger, then you don't even, you can just do that last step on a serger and you wouldn't even have to mess with this. That's what I usually do. Okay. Okay, so I trimmed the bulk off. Alright. Now, what you can do, this is optional, you can do what I just showed you, a zigzag stitch, and you can finish this so it doesn't fray in the wash. Okay? You don't have to. I'm not going to do that again just for the sake of time, but now we're going to flip it over. Okay, and you can see it's starting to come along. Alright, we have our bodice and our skirting now. Okay?